population has a mean of 200 and a standard deviation of 50. Suppose a sample size of 100 is selected and x bar is used to estimate mu. What's the probability the sample mean will be within plus or minus 5 of the population mean? So we can draw our sampling distribution, which is normally distributed, with a mean of 200, which is the population mean, and its standard error is going to be sigma sub x bar is going to be equal to the population standard deviation of 50 divided by the square root of the sample size. Square root of 100 is 10, so we have 50 divided by 10, or we have 5. Now, what we want to know is what's the probability that a sample mean will be within plus or minus 5 of the population mean. So I've got, say, 205 maybe out here, and then 195 maybe there. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out what's the area in between these. Well, to do that, I'm going to figure out the area from 205 to the left, and then figure out the area from 195 to the left. So I'm going to calculate z-values to help me do that. So the z-value for 205 is going to be equal to 205 minus 200 divided by 5. Well, that's going to be equal to 1. And my second z-value for 195 is going to be equal 195 minus 200 divided by 5, or it's going to be equal to minus 1. And so I need the areas associated or to the left of z equal to 1. So I can go to my tables and look z equal to 1.00, and that's going to be here at 0.8413. That's 0.8413. And for minus 1, go to my second table, and here I have 0.1587. So I have 0.1587. And so now I'm going to subtract those two values, and when I do that, I get 0.6826. So that's the area between 205 and 195. Now I'm going to do this problem again, but now I want to know the probability the sample mean will be within plus or minus 10 of the population mean. So again, looking at my sampling distribution, it has a mean of 200. It has a standard error equal to 5. And now I've got out here 210, and back here 190, and I want to know the area in between those two values. So calculating z-values again, I get z for 210 is going to be 210 minus 200 divided by 5, or equal to 2. And the z-value for 190 is going to be equal to minus 2. So looking up 2, I get the value of 0.9772. And looking up minus 2, I get a value of 0.0228. 0.0228. And then when I subtract those two, I get a value of 0.9544. And that's the area between 210 and 190. A population has a mean of 200 and a standard deviation of 50. Suppose a sample size of 100 is selected and x bar is used to estimate mu. What's the probability that the sample mean will be within plus or minus 5 of the population mean? Well, we can draw our sampling distribution, which is going to be a normal distribution with a mean of 200. And its standard error is going to be equal to the population standard deviation, which is going to be equal to 50, divided by the square root of the sample size. And that's going to be 100. So when I make that calculation, the standard error is going to be 5. So now we want to know what's the probability of being able, that the sample mean will be within plus or minus 5 of the population mean. So I can think about that as sort of putting over here 205 and over here 195. And if I think about drawing a line straight up from that 205 and a line straight up from the 195, what I want to know is what's the area in between those two. Well, I can use Excel functions to help me do that. So I'm going to use equal norm.dist, and norm.dist and its arguments wants to know what x is. Well, x is going to be, in this case, my 205. The mean is going to be 200. And my standard deviation, which in this case is my standard error, that's going to be equal to 5. And of course, I want cumulative, so I'm going to put in 1 or true. And I get a value of 0.841345. Well, that gives me the area from 205 to the left. I now want to look at what's the area from 195 to the left. So that's going to be equal to, again, norm.dist. And x is going to be 195. And the mean is going to be 200. And the standard deviation is going to be 5. And of course, I want cumulative. And I'm going to put in 1. And then close that. And now I get the area from 195 to the left is going to be 0.158655. The difference between those is going to give me what's in between them. So I'm going to take 0.841345 minus the 0.158655, and that gives me a value of 0.682689. Now my second question is, what's the probability of being within plus or minus 10? So that's like having 210 out here and 190 over here. And again, I'm trying to figure out what's the area in between those two values. So I'm going to use norm.dist. And so I use norm.dist. Now the value I'm going to use first is 210. The mean remains the same at 200. The standard error is going to be 5, or for the standard deviation. And of course I want cumulative, so I put in 1, and that gives me 0.97725. I do exactly the same thing for 190. So norm.dist is going to be 190 with a mean of 200, a standard deviation of 5, and of course cumulative. And subtract those two numbers, and that will give me then the area that's in between them, or the area in between them in this case is 0.9545.